we're always trying to be in teams and label ourselves in groups. Even like what we eat. Oh, I'm a vegan. I'm a vegetarian. Oh, I'm a carnivore. Or I do the keto diet. Can't we just fucking eat food? Like, why do we have to label everything? Welcome to another episode of the Alpha Social Club. I'm your host, Esteban. Thank you for joining me again, you guys. This is episode number 2. The first one dropped last week. I think I'll be releasing these every Wednesday for now and adjust if needed in the future. But there's a saying that if you're not embarrassed with your first release, then you've released too late. Something along those lines. But the first episode that I released, the first time I mentioned the website, I actually messed up on it. So I said that the official website was ascpodcast.com, and it's actually the ascpodcast.com. So I apologize if any of you guys caught that, or if you were able to put that on the search and take you to another site. It's just one of those things, that I guess I was really excited to release that. I didn't even realize that I did that till I was editing the show, and I was like, oh God. Hope you guys are doing pretty good. I mean, we're already getting close to the holidays. It's that time where if you haven't, talked to somebody in a while, it's a good time to check in on them to make sure that they're doing good. There's a lot of depression around this time for obvious reasons. People lose family members, and then Christmas is not the same. Thanksgiving's not the same for a lot of people. So, it's important for us to take care of each other and check in to see how everybody's doing. It was my dad's birthday on November 2nd, which is it was last Friday. November 2nd in the Mexican culture is the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos. For those of you that aren't too familiar with it, it's a tradition in Mexico where people honor the dead. It is said that if you don't remember your dead family members or loved ones, that their soul just kind of disappears and is forgotten. And so it's important in that culture to remember the people that lived before you. And the way that it usually works is if somebody likes liked a particular type of whiskey when they were alive, let's say Jack Daniels to keep it simple. So you would visit them in the cemetery and take a bottle of Jack and leave it for them as an offering to remind them that you still think about them, and so it's a pretty cool tradition. It's my dad's birthday, so it was always kind of one of those kind of ironic celebrations. I'm sure it was interesting when he was born on the Day of the Dead. So I drove out to San Diego to spend time with him. My dad's, I don't know if you guys dealt with this before, but my dad's health is deteriorating, and I can see changes every time I see him. He lives in Tijuana, which is a border town, San Diego. So I see him as much as I would. I mean, I would want to see him more, but I see him, a few times here and there. Often, I would say, maybe, now that I think about it, but it's never enough, when your parents get older and that the time is pretty limited. I can visibly see him, kind of deteriorating. And it's one of those things that I struggle with, I don't know if you guys can relate, or if you guys your parents are still healthy, or it hasn't even crossed your mind, but you can definitely tell when somebody's health is starting to deteriorate, and I could see it with them, and it kind of it's devastating. As much as I want to be a stoic about it, or understand that this is the law of life. I'm still a human, you know. I still have things that I struggle with, and that's one of them. You know, that's one of the things that keeps me up at night. You know, it's my father, his health. You know, when my parents divorced when I was 15, and he never moved on. You know, I'm 36 now, and he's been by himself. You know, pretty much this whole time. You know, staying here and there, different places. He's very antisocial, socially awkward. He keeps to himself, and he's got low self-esteem. And you know, I try to help him. I had a conversation with him a few weeks ago, and I was trying to tell him that, you know, it's the way that he thinks, to try to like think of himself outside of that situation. And you know, I went into deep with him with stuff like that, and he said he wished he had a cup of coffee so we can have that conversation. You know, one of my plans is last Christmas we spent Christmas together. It was just him and I. I told everybody that I can't attend any kind of festivities. I just want to be with my father. So it was just me and him, and my girl came over after. She brought us food from her house, but it was really cool. We were able to play music. He was singing. I got him, recorded him on my voice memo. But for this year, since I have the equipment and I'm doing the podcast, I want to record a podcast with him. I won't release it out till he transitions out of respect, but I want to see. I want to get his story, and I want to record it and have it so I can have it, you know, as a memory. I think it's something important that I can do. I'm not sure if it's Tourette's, but he's got like a, well, it's not Tourette's. You know, he's got like a shaking in his arm and his hands that it's hard for him to even eat. You know, it's hard for him to pick up a fork, or when he eats soup, it just kind of gets everywhere. And luckily, I'm really patient with him, but it still sucks to see your loved one just kind of deteriorate like that. You know. So I still struggle to see if I should intervene or just kind of let him live his life the way he wants to. And you know, he smokes a lot of cigarettes. He smokes a lot of cigarettes, and he said he calmed down more, but I still struggle. Should I tell him something? Like, should I try to intervene and tell him, you know, this and that? I mean, he's an adult. You know, he's lived his life, so I'm kind of a little bit on the fence about it, but I just kind of let him live his life, and let him enjoy the days that he has, you know. I think it's pretty selfish for me to even think about it, but if I acted upon it where I told him that he needs to stop doing this, I mean, pretty selfish of me to tell him to live the way I live my life, you know. So just do the best of it, you know. So I spent time with him. I drove out to San Diego on Saturday, and I was not surprised that he wanted to go hit up a casino. You know, he loves gambling. I could remember as a kid, you know, growing up, going to Santa Anita, Hollywood Park. You know, I could specifically still smell the smell of cigar and cigarette in the air while the horses were racing and people were yelling. You know, it's a vivid memory that I have. We used to go so much. I have a really cool memory of that though. Like, you know, they if you're not familiar with horse races, you know, you can bet on horses obviously, but they give you a little ticket that shows your bet and what horse you bet on. And if you had like an exacta, they call it, which if you think number 4 is gonna win and 2 is gonna come second, then you bet. You know, it was $2 at the time. I'm not sure if it changed now. And so these guys would just kind of toss these little tickets out on the floor whenever the race was over. So, you know, I would always, when we walk in, I would always grab a program, which was, you know, it listed all the races and all the information that you needed, and then you use that to make your bet. And so I was always grabbing one, and then I would keep track, you know, I would keep track of who won, and while my dad was betting, I would kind of entertain myself by going around the whole park, around the benches, and grabbing all the little tickets that I saw on the floor. And I remember one time I actually found one that won. Like, I don't know if this guy was just too excited and he tossed it out, and or it just kind of fell from his program, his little booklet. But I think it was like $20 that I won, but it was off a ticket that was on the floor, you know. So I was like stoked, you know, like a fat kid that I was. You know, I bought nachos and soda and burgers, and that's where everything went. All my winnings went in calories. I remember I told my dad to cash it for me, and he gave me the money, and I was just super happy, you know. So it's still one of the things that he likes to do, you know. He no longer works, you know. He it's his favorite pastime to go casinos and gamble. So it was his birthday. So what are you gonna do, you know? So I drove down to San Diego and I met him and my uncle at this casino down there called Viejas. It's a really nice casino actually, and it took me a while to find them because I don't know if you guys are dealing with this, but sometimes your parents, you know, they for some reason they don't answer the phone. They can't hear the ringtone, and that was the case, you know, this weekend. So finally found them, and he was really excited to see me, and I was really happy to see him too, you know. But he said that he wasn't winning at that one, so my uncle was like, "Yeah, he wants you to take him to another one, and I'll meet you guys over there." So we walked outside and walking to the car. We got to the car and I told him, "Hey, do you have your phone on you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I have it." And I was like, "Well, let's check. I'm gonna call you right now and make sure that your ringtone is on and the volume's at full blast." So I called his phone and we were laughing because it rang, you know. And I was like, "All right, good. So if you get lost, I'm gonna call you. So just be aware of that." And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna be with you, you know. Why would I get lost and this and that?" And I was like, you know, it's part of the experience. You can get lost, you know. So it was cool, you know. We got on the car and I played him the first episode and I was giving him an kind of a quick recap of what's going on and what I'm trying to do. He's never seen any of those music videos that are on there, so so he was really stoked. He was pretty excited to see me, you know, out there, and you know, I think he felt proud, you know, that no matter what his life is or what it was or what it became, he's proud of the fact that he has kids that still, you know, kind of think about him and stuff like that. So it's really important, you know. So we get in the car and we get to the other casino and you know, it was pretty cool, you know. I remember one time you know, you put your little card in the slot machine and it tells you your name and gives you points or whatever. And one of the casino employees came by around the corner and you know, he was talking to my dad on a first name basis. And I told my dad in front of the guy, I was like, "Hey, I thought you don't come over here anymore. This guy knows you by your name." And the employee of the casino, I think he thought that I was being serious, and he was like, "No, it's just the cards in there. It tells us where these people are." And so they gave him like a little, you know, I think they gave him like $15 and for his birthday, and then you know they offered him a piece of cake, and you know what was funny is that you know he told him, "No, I can't have cake. I'm diabetic." The employee suggested, he was like, "Well, you want some cigarettes? I can give you a pack of cigarettes." And he jumped on that quick, and I was like, "Dad, what's up with those priorities? You know, you're afraid to have cake because you're diabetic, but you take those cigarettes right away, you know." But he just starts laughing, you know. You know, I gambled a little bit. You know, I'm not really big on that, but I was there. You know, I was trying to spend time with my father. So what are you gonna do, you know? So I was sitting in the roulette table, and I kind of had a view of him. He was just kind of hanging out and stuff like that, you know. And he gets up, and I'm like in the middle of a bet. So I'm like, man, I can't leave my post, you know. So I kind of see him through the crowd, and I see that he goes into a restroom. So I cash out and I walk over to the restroom, and I was like, okay, you know, he's gonna be there a while. So I I ended up getting the urge to go to the restroom myself, but I I knew there was one around the corner that was a little bit more private than this one. So I'm like, "Ah, I have time, you know." My dad takes a long time to get ready to, like, you know, put his pants on, and you know he's a little bit slower than normal than he was before. So I'm like, I have time. So I went to do my thing. I came back and I went in there looking for him through the stalls. I probably looked like a weirdo, you know, but and he wasn't there. I was like, damn, where did this guy go? So since I knew he had his phone on him, I started dialing his number, and man, it's hard to reach parents sometimes because they don't hear the phone. Like they're just like, I don't know if they're just distracted. I don't know if really their ears are giving out, but I called them like 15 times and no answer. I would go straight to voicemail or ring a little bit, and I was like, dude. So finally I hit a corner and I saw him, he was walking towards the food court. I was like, where's this guy going? So I was maybe 5 feet behind him, and he didn't know I was behind him. And I was like, watch, I'm going to call his phone right now, and he's not even going to budge. And sure enough, I was walking behind him. I dialed his number. It was ringing, and I heard his phone ring in his pocket, and he just didn't have a care today, man. So it just kind of made me laugh a little bit, like, to be older, He turned 67, which is technically still young, but just lived a rough life, alcohol. He's diabetic. And then you also add the loneliness part of it, living by himself and stuff like that. I mean, I check in on him, but he's still lonely. That I can't really. He needs a partner. He needs somebody there to, like, give him company. I think the Atlantic put out an article last year that said that loneliness, feeling lonely, is more harmful to your health than smoking cigarettes. And I believe that. And that's what drove me actually too to do something like this, is to try to let you guys know that you don't have to feel lonely. There's people like me everywhere that care. They just don't go out there and record a podcast. But it's very important for us to know that we have each other's back. We're the same. We're the same organism. There's no difference, only our skin color, but it's due to the environment. Some of us were more exposed to the sun than others, which made our skin darker, and there's really no difference. We're all the same. It's just we feel that, we have that, like that, we're always trying to be in teams and label ourselves in groups. Even like what we eat. Oh, I'm a vegan, I'm a vegetarian, oh, I'm a carnivore, or I do the keto diet. Can't we just fucking eat food? Like, why do we have to label everything, Why do who I am, why is it dictated by what I eat? And so that's the label that we give ourselves when it comes to eating. Then, if we're a certain race, then we label ourselves that. And then it just keeps going, When are we just humans? Why am I not just a human, we overcomplicate things, and it's not as easy as just the color white and the color black. Even that subconscious association of colors, it also affects some people, because we're subconsciously we're biased without even knowing. When they say black, that black people, black person or whatever, we have the subconscious association of the color black. Black is associated with funerals. Black is associated with night, which is can be seen as a scary thing for most people, or some, I should say. If you understand polarity, or the way that electricity works, whenever you have the negative pulse on a battery, it's always the color black. It's these labels are really harmful. Why can't we just be humans? In my eyes, we're just humans. That's how I like to live my life. I'm just a human that happens to be a male. I'm not here to judge anybody. We're the same. I'm not a human being on a spiritual path. I'm a spiritual being on a human path. This isn't it for us. There's more to life. There's more to our essence, the energy that we're made out of. You can't destroy. We form into something else. It's not just this life. And I have a struggle with that. I struggle with that. Why can't we just be humans? But back to my dad. He's funny, man. He's got a good sense of humor, and he told me a few times that he appreciates me going, and this is the stuff that he's gonna remember. And I thought about it too, when I was sitting on the roulette table, I looked over at him and I saw him playing. For some reason, I knew that that was gonna be a memory that I was gonna take with me. Like, you ever wonder what consists of an incident that's gonna be embedded in our minds so much that it's gonna cause a memory and create a memory that we can reflect? Like, what makes certain situations? There's some things that I remember as a kid that don't really mean anything, to be honest, but I don't know why I remember them. Like, why do I remember them? Just stuff like that really fascinates me. But I know that he's not gonna be with me forever, and that's a selfish statement as well that I struggle with. But I want to at least appreciate him while he's here. There's a period in my 20s for about maybe 7 or 8 years that I didn't talk to him because I still blamed him for the childhood that I had and the adult that I became at the time in my 20s. I just blamed everything on him because that's what I was told. Hey, you had a terrible childhood? Yeah, that's why you're like that. So, oh, well, it's his fault. So for 7 or 8 years, I didn't talk to him. It took my cousin calling me and telling me, hey, your dad's in really bad shape. You need to come. And even then, I was debating. I finally just said, you know what? This guy probably needs me. So I drove to San Diego and I found him he was living in a van. He was basically homeless in his car, I guess. That's considered homeless. And I took him to the doctor to get a checkup, and he was wearing women's underwear. Like, he was so thrown off, like he didn't know what was going on. And he was lying to the doctors. The doctors were asking him when his last drink was. He said it was like 2 or 3 months ago. He was clearly wasted. And I was like, this guy needs help. So I took him to a rehab center, and then, that really helped him, actually. That really helped him. I'm sure he still takes a little sips here and there, but it definitely changed his life. And then that made me, rekindle our relationship. I was like, hey man, this might work. That kind of aligned with the path that I took, and now I'm just like really grateful that I wasn't that person that let my parent die and then regret it later on and say, man, I should have been there for him. I don't know if you guys ever dealt with that, but it's definitely something that I didn't want to kind of deal with. But he's if there's something that keeps me up at night is him. I worry about his health. He lives in Mexico, which is it's not the safest neighborhood where he's at. Maybe 2 or 3 months ago, he woke up early to go to the doctor's, which was it was still dark outside, and he's one of those older, little skinny, fragile guys that carries a backpack everywhere. And so he had his little backpack, which I'm not sure what he carries in there, to be honest, but he always carries his little backpack, probably his smokes. And he was walking towards the bus stop because he doesn't drive anymore. And he said that some guy just came out of nowhere and was like, hey, I saw you trying to break into that car over there. And he's like, what are you talking about? I didn't, I'm just trying to walk to the bus stop. And he said he saw a few more guys come out of like fences and stuff like that. And so it's just clearly they were trying to rob him. One of the guys was like, hey, come over here. You can't go away. And my dad just kind of panicked, and he's very fragile. He's a fragile old man. Somehow he got the courage to run away, and these guys grabbed the rocks and started throwing rocks at him, and he got hit a few times. He was bruised up, and his backpack was able to kind of support him as far as shield the rocks. But he was definitely startled. I don't know if you guys ever dealt with that, but it was definitely something that kind of affected me. Like, man, my dad's so fragile. He doesn't know how to take care of himself anymore. But he's stubborn. He's a stubborn old man, and that kind of adds to the situation as well. His stubbornness. He still doesn't really like to be taken care of. So as a son, all I can do is just be there for him and just kind of not make him enter my world at this point, because when he was going through his like schizophrenic kind of episodes, the advice I was given is to not make him feel like he's crazy. Like it's no longer is you trying to make him go into your world. Your goal now is to go into his world and not make him seem like he's just talking out of his ass, you know? I clearly remember one time we were driving and the car that I was driving at that particular time had one of those touchscreen kind of radios, you know, navigation and all that stuff, GPS, your phone connects to it or whatever. And he kept saying that we were being chased, like the helicopter was chasing us, and it was absurd. You know, we're on the 405. Like, what do you mean, dude? But my job wasn't to make him feel like he's crazy. I was like, really? They're chasing us? Well, how can we get out of it? Have they chased you before? And he was like, yeah, use your screen and you can kind of throw them off. And so I just started, and I think I changed the station at AM and I did all this weird shit that completely threw off my settings on my radio, but it worked apparently because he was like, all right, cool, yeah, they're gone. So it was my job to go into his world, you know. When you have a relative or somebody close to you that's going through like dementia or any kind of mental health issues, it's not safe to make them feel like they're crazy. It's your responsibility to not be so selfish to make them want to come into your world anymore. You have to go into theirs and not make them feel like they're not seeing what they're seeing, you know? And so I dealt with that with my dad too, you know? He's gone through a lot, that guy, you know, but somehow he still manages to, like, you know, crack a smile here and there and you know, for the most part, stay pretty optimistic. I mean, all he wants is to hang out. You know, he was really happy at the casino. We had a good time, you know, and I'm glad that I got to spend time with him this weekend. You know, I kind of put everything aside and I was like, you know, I'm gonna go see what's up with my dad and spend some time with him. You know, so it's very important. I mean, it adds to the holidays. You know, a lot of people get depressed around this time. You know, there's people that don't have a family. You know, that lost a family member. One of my buddies, his mom just passed away a couple of weeks ago. She was 104 years old, and he was obviously sad about it, but he was very optimistic and cheerful and saying, you know, my mom had a great life. That's a full life, 104. And I asked him, she was in the hospital a few weeks back, and you know, it seems like she made a recovery. And I asked him, hey, dude, so what's the secret? What's the secret to your mom's longevity? And he was like, she doesn't stress over anything. She's just always happy, always singing. And and it's true, you know, I've seen documentaries of people in Japan that are centenarians, I think they call them, that live over 100 years old. And these guys are cheerful, laughing, they're still gardening, you know, they're still enjoying themselves, just living life, you know. When I was down in Peru, there was 80, 90-year-old men and women just hiking, you know, chewing on coca leaves all day and super healthy, you know. So I think mental health and just being happy or just being optimistic in things, because we're gonna deal with stuff. It's just inevitable as humans, you know. It's just the way that we process the situation that's gonna dictate if it's gonna affect us or not. We talked a little bit about this on the first episode, so there's no need to repeat that. But just being optimistic and making light of every situation is definitely really important. You know, laughing with people, not being so stuck up. You know, taking stuff too serious. Like, that's the society that we're in right now. You can't even joke around anymore without people being offended and hurt. So it's important to laugh. You know, I laughed a lot with my dad this weekend, and it was pretty funny. But yeah, that's one of the things that keeps me up at night. You know, that's one of the things that slaps me in the face and reminds me of the human emotion that you can't think that you have life figured. There's always something that you know kind of creeps in and gets to you. And my father is one of the things that I think about most. You know, for the most part, I'm pretty positive and optimistic, and you know, I have enough tools to be able to handle certain situations. But when it comes to him, I don't know. it's just I become a vulnerable kid, you know. And I don't know if you guys have dealt with the loss with a family member, but you know, I struggle with that. That's honestly one of the things that I struggle with because I know some of the teachings that I've read and people have told me is that crying is a selfish act, and I battle with that. Like part of me doesn't want to accept that, but then I realize what crying is, you know. If somebody dumps you and you start crying, why are you crying? Are you crying because you no longer are going to spend time with that person? You no longer are going to hug that person? You no longer are going to have sex with that person? That's thinking about yourself, not realizing that that person has their path that they need to follow, you know? There was a story of Don Miguel Ruiz when, you know, he was basically in his deathbed and his kids were crying around him and he wanted to exit, you know, he was starting to shut down the factory, ready to transition, and he kind of stopped himself and he told his kids, "Why are you guys crying?" "Oh, because you know, we don't want you to go." "Yeah, you don't want me to go, but that's being selfish. That's you thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about the path that I have. If it's my time to go, that's my path. So you crying right now is a really selfish thing, you know?" I think about stuff like that, but I also I don't know. Sounds pretty emotionless when you think about it, but you know, it's just we're all a work in progress, you know. We can't really walk around like we know everything because you know, as soon as you say, "Man, I got this life is easy," then we get something that just kind of throws us off, you know. But I'm glad that you guys if you're listening, I'm glad that you're listening to this, and this was probably a little bit selfish of me to talk about what I'm going through, but I apologize for that. It definitely helped me to talk and talk about how my weekend was, spending time with my father, and you know, stay up at night thinking. So I appreciate you guys for letting me vent, and you know, I'm here for you guys too, though. You know, you guys can go to the official. Now it's the official because the first episode I totally butchered the website. But if you go to the ascpodcast.com, you guys can send me a message there and we can connect. I did add a little Amazon banner in the bottom, and you know that's if you find the show helpful, that's just a little link to the Amazon search. We're already ordering on Amazon as it is, so it's an affiliate program. Like it's not going to charge you anything extra for batteries or whatever you order on Amazon, but if you order through that link, it helps the show out. You know, they give us a little bit of not very much, but a percentage of what the sale amount is. So it doesn't charge you anything extra. It's just linked up to the show, and you know it helps. I have like some visions for this in the future, and it'll help for that. You know, so I appreciate you guys. If it's nighttime, have a good night. If it's daytime, I hope you guys are having a good day. If it's morning, good morning. Tomorrow's another day. Peace.